What's up guys, Huso7 here, and in my last video I talked about the differences between pilot gameplay and mechanics from Titanfall 2 to Titanfall 1, and now I wanted to make a video to talk about how Titans are different in Titanfall 2 as opposed to Titanfall 1. So, this playing in the background is the Titan loadout menu in Titanfall 2. This is from the technical test, and the first and foremost sort of like thing that's different that you might notice about this is you cannot select your chassis or your weapon, and that's a major difference. So, you know, if you remember in Titanfall 1, you could pick between the three different chassis. You could have the Strider, the Atlas, or the Ogre, and they each sort of have different movement abilities, and they each had, you know, different levels of armor. And then you would also pick the weapon. You could have the chain gun, you could have the pulse rifle, you could have the triple threat, right? You pick the gun that you wanted. Well, now there are 6 Titans, and each have unique abilities, but they all sort of have a unique chassis, and they all have a unique weapon. And so that's like the first sort of major change to this game. And you know, if I'm totally honest, I kind of miss how it was in Titanfall 1, but I'm really open to seeing how it's going to work. Because there are 6 Titans as opposed to 3, there's a good variety of weapons. The only thing that kind of makes it, you know, makes it a little bit sad is that I sort of like playing as the Strider Titan with a quick launch rocket launcher, right? That was really fun. You could dash around the map and you could use the rocket launcher. And then I liked to have like the heavy cannon for the Ogre. He was kind of slow, you know, use the 40mm because I kind of take those longer shots. And now it's sort of like you might be locked into having to use the rocket launcher with the Ogre Titan, right? And so that's kind of the best way that I can explain it. So that right there is a major change. But don't write this game off yet, because there's a lot of other cooler changes that are coming to Titanfall 2 as well. In addition, there are now some like Titan sort of perks. You know, there was in Titanfall 1, but these can specifically adjust how you can use your abilities. So the Titans all have 3 unique abilities. They have like an offensive ability, a defensive ability, and then you can say they have a utility. And this is probably my favorite thing. This is really cool because if you remember in Titanfall 1, like for example this one, the Vortex Shield. Vortex Shield was an ability that you could choose. You could choose smoke or the shield or the particle wall. Well, now your ability is linked to your Titan, and so if you want to use the Vortex Shield, you have to use this ion. So again, that limits the amount of customization, but it does make it that if you really want to be an expert in all Titan, you know, you need to learn how to use the core, the ability, the weapon, and that I do think is kind of neat, because in Titanfall 1, I usually ended up just using the particle wall or the smoke. I didn't really use Vortex Shield very much, and I usually stuck to the same kind of few weapons, and I mostly played as the Atlas Titan. And so I think that it's kind of cool, and I'm looking forward to trying out all of these different Titan loadouts and see how those are going to work. But this is a major difference. All of the Titans also have an offensive core ability, which I'll cover in a second video where I'm going to be showing off all of the 6 Titans right from the Titanfall 2 website. But I did want to show you that this does have this has the core laser ability, and Scorch has like the flame pound. So they have separate offensive abilities too, and I think that's really neat. You know, in the core abilities in Titanfall 1 were like a dash core or a shield core or a damage core. So they boosted you, but all sort of in like, you know, like passive or defensive ways, whereas the cores are offensive, right? They're like missiles, or they're, you know, this one which lets you shoot a laser out of your chest. It's really cool. So the cores are sort of like offensive attack things, and I think personally that's pretty cool. Another change is that you can now see that I have the Warp Fall kit. So Warp Fall kit or Dome Shield is now one or the other. You have to choose what you take. It's no longer like a pilot ability. It's actually a Titan ability, and you are pick it in the loadout menu. So that's kind of a neat thing that you choose between one or the other. Now another quick note is that nuclear ejection is back, which is something that I had mixed feelings about, but I feel like they sort of resolved one of the major problems with it, which was that you could just use your nuclear eject kind of anytime you wanted to. So people would just use it as an offensive weapon. Now with the nuclear eject, you have to use it when your Titan is in a doomed state, and so that's a major difference, which I think is a good change. Now speaking of doomed state, I made a video specifically talking about the batteries or the power cores, so I'm not going to go into that very much, but essentially the thing that I want you to know and take away from this is that now your Titan no longer like ticks down health and will die over time when in a doom state. So if your Titan is in a doom state, you can roll around in that doom state for as long as you want, and that's really interesting. That's a major change from before. Before, you know, your Titan just kind of the health just ticked down at a rate. You could slow it with the Survivor perk, but once it hit 0, you were dead. And that's not going to be the case anymore. So that is a cool change because, you know, that's going to let you stay in your Titan a little bit longer, and you can actually, with a Power Core, recharge your Titan's health. So again, check out my Power Core video if you want to see how that works, but it's important to know that the Titan does not die anymore in a new state. Now your core ability charges just like your Titanfall incoming charges on the left bottom corner. You see here it's charging to drop your Titan, and then you can see here when your Titan has already dropped, now it's charging its core. Now one note about this is that electric smoke, if you see it down here in the corner, is no longer an ability that you take and activate. Electric smoke is something that is available to your Titan once you reach 75% core charge. So that's cool because that means you can't use it sort of like right out of the gate, but you still can essentially get it on every single Titan, which is nice because, you know, I mean, I don't mind getting out to try and kill pilots. I thought that was always kind of fun when you were getting rodeoed, but because the rodeo mechanics are different, it is kind of nice to have that. And speaking of the rodeo mechanics being different, another major change in this is that you can't just like rodeo a Titan to death anymore. When a pilot jumps on a Titan, they will either remove a power core, which will take away sort of your shield, or they'll throw a grenade in, which will do a severe amount of damage to your Titan's health, but then they jump off. And so that's a major change because rodeoing and killing Titans from a rodeo state was something that I did all the time in Titanfall 1. So that is a major change. So overall, the Titans feel, in my opinion, a little less powerful. They feel kind of like weaker, like they die faster, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And that's a bummer because, you know, in Titanfall 1, when you're in a Titan, it sort of just feels like you are like, you're a hacker. You know, you just have like God mode and you can just run around and you can stomp on enemies and stuff. And that sort of comes back in Titanfall 2, but it really just feels to me like the Titans die really quickly. And part of that's because you don't have recharging shields, again, which, you know, I went over in the Power Core video. So I think that that's part of what it is, but my only sort of gripe with this game so far, which in playing the technical test I loved, a lot of people had some issues with it, but so far I thought it was great, but my only sort of concern with it was that it felt like the Titans were a little weak. So there you have it. Like I said, I'm going to have a separate video where I'll go through all 6 of the Titans right from their website and show you some of their abilities from the Titanfall 2 website. But there you have it. That's some differences between how Titans work in Titanfall 2 and Titanfall 1. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of my Titanfall content.